I want to see you raise your hand so that I know you know how to do it, and that like I'll know what it looks like when you do it. I can't see that. Gare, I can't see that when you do that. Gare, I don't think you know how to raise your hand. That's better.
You might want to do it quicker, though, because if you do it slowly, then...
We're going to ignore you.
Yeah. We're not going to see it. Also, Garrett, on this card it says facts, but it looks like farts.
It does look like farts. Look at that.
Are you recording already?
Yeah. All right, we're ready?
All right, Gary, you ready to not talk?
I'm ready to not talk.
You can talk, Garrett.
I'm ready.
You ready?
Only when you're supposed to. Okay.
You ready?
Oh. All right. We're doing some loud breathing first. Nose breather.
So, I went to Target the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Little background on me. I have a fear of pregnancy.
And not just giving birth. It's pregnancy itself, too.
The entire thing. I don't even like pregnant women. I don't. I have a fear of pregnancy. And also, I don't have regular periods. So, I take pregnancy tests all the time because I'm paranoid about it. So, I go to Target to stock up. And the woman at Target...
This is the cashier, right?
The cashier. She looks at Matthew and I, and she's checking us out. She checks out the pregnancy test. She says, "Oh, congratulations." And I was like, no, maybe not, no. It seemed kind of just like a slip at first. Like something that maybe she didn't think about before she said it. Mm-hmm. And then she said, well, no, it's happening.
What?
Yeah.
Meaning what?
That I was pregnant. She was just assuming because I was buying a pregnancy test that one, I was automatically pregnant. And two, congratulations were in order. But then she wasn't getting the reaction that she wanted from me, which was, yes, thank you. So she went to Matthew, who is non-confrontational. Matthew's my husband. So she went to Matthew and she said, well, what are you going to do? Are you ready? Are you prepared?
That's like such an inappropriate conversation for a cashier to be having with a customer.
Yes, it is. And I was just like, no. I felt like once she went to Matthew and was asking him if he was prepared and what he was going to do, she was trying to humiliate and shame us. And she wanted the people in line behind us to hear her.
That's just an invasion of privacy. You don't comment on what people are buying.
No.
Unless it's something completely neutral, like, that dress is really cute. Gum. That's something that you can talk about. You don't comment on whether someone is buying, like, gas relief medicine or pregnancy tests or condoms or anything of a sensitive nature.
No, you don't.
It's just not your place.
No. So I went home, wrote Target a letter. Target sent me an email, not a letter. Mm-hmm. That was just like, thanks for your concern. Sorry that happened. I expected a little bit more.
Like, here's a $5 gift card.
I mean, gift card would have been nice, but...
I can forget everything with a $5 gift card.
Yes, I can too. But I expected them to say that they were going to address this employee.
So it's not really even acknowledging that it's a problem if all you're doing is saying you're sorry.
Yeah. And that was all they did. They were just like, sorry.
That's almost like saying, like, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like a non-apology.
Yeah. Which is my favorite kind of way to apologize.
So passive-aggressive.
So passive-aggressive.
I'm glad we're on the same page. Because sometimes we aren't. I feel like that maybe happened once. I'm trying to remember a time we didn't agree. Garrett? Never. It's never happened.
It's never happened.
Probably.
Never happened. We volunteered recently.
Yeah, we did.
As escorts at a clinic.
Not that kind of escort.
No, if I'm that kind, I'm getting paid. That is not a volunteer position.
Nope.
Escorts at a clinic. And it was a great experience, but that's another thing where people are just giving their opinion.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And it's not wanted.
No.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work unless you're in the movie Juno. which we'll talk about later.
We will talk about later because you are listening to SheSplain, and it is our How to Be a Woman in Hollywood episode.
Yes.
It's going to be a 2-part episode, and
As usual, there are a lot of things that we are going to cover today. Yes.
But there are a lot of things that we won't get to cover.
There's tons of things that we'd love to talk about, but we can't talk about in this episode because it's just such a broad topic. So while we hope to get to these things in the future, I just want to run down a really quick little list of things that we're not going to talk about, but we acknowledge our problems and that do need to be addressed in the entertainment industry, in our media.
And we will do episodes on this.
Yes.
Continuation of How to Be a Woman in Hollywood.
Yeah, and you know what? If one of these strikes a particular chord with you and you want us to talk about it, let us know on the social medias.
Social medias. Send us an email. Or if we don't bring something up in this list, definitely send us an email and let us know what you would like us to address.
Yes, we love it. Okay, so here's some things that we're not going to talk about. How lesbian and bi characters die at a disproportionate rate. Last year, at least 28 characters died on television. I didn't even know there was 28 bi or lesbian characters to begin with. I mean, that's pretty good, but considering how many TV shows there are.
I'm assuming that they're talking about, like, the patients on Grey's Anatomy.
Well, no, these are main characters. Actually,
really?
The study that was done is not really so much a study. It was like a list that someone made. I'll put it on the website. Yeah, no, just disappointing. We're not going to talk about Hollywood's depiction of trans women, how they're often played by cisgender men. We're not going to talk about stereotypes of black women in movies and TV in depth, though we will touch on it a little bit. We're not going to talk about bi invisibility or whitewashing of Asian women characters. We're not going to talk about the male gaze or problems with rom-coms or how dead mothers are used to develop character depth, or how rape is used to do the same thing as well. Although you are going to touch on mothers a little bit, right?
I do touch on mothers a little bit, yeah.
Cool. And we're not going to talk about the lack of female leads. 2015 had just 17% of female leads in the top grossing films. I think that was the top 200 films. 17% is really sad. We're not going to talk about other harmful or limiting stereotypes of women, including the Madonna horror complex, slut-shaming, women as props that have no agency, femme fatales, the victim that's close to the protagonist whose abuse/death drives the plot. We're not going to talk about nagging women, Why can't I say that?
Manic pixie dream girls.
Manic pixie dream girls.
But we will, because I have things to say.
We'll talk about it a little bit, yeah. Gar, any stereotypes you want to add? By the way, this is Gar.
Our designated dude for the day.
Garrett Steiger is an entertainment professional, self-proclaimed film geek, and happens to be our friend.
Hi, Brie. Hi, TL. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
For coming.
Yeah. How long have I known you? 5 or 6 years?
6 years.
Yeah. It's been a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Called SheSplain is what you're listening to right now.
SheSplain.
SheSplain.
Do you want to say anything about yourself?
You really covered all my bases. I am a self-confessed film nerd and just all-around nerdy nerd.
What's your favorite movie? I didn't mean to cut you off. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is, well, if I were going to do a top 3, it would be Jaws, and Jaws. Probably.
Is it Jaws?
It might be Jaws.
You like Jaws?
A little bit.
I've heard of that movie.
It's a good one.
Gary, do you want to tell a story?
Oh, I do want to tell a story. So, Brie had never seen Jaws when I met her, and so this probably would have been a few years ago now. And so we watched it at her apartment, and right before the movie started, she was like, Gare, I just want you to know, I'm an adult. I'm not going to scream.
I don't think I said it like that.
That is almost exactly how you said it.
That's how you remember it.
Because you were not the first person to have said that to me. And sure enough, there must have been 3 or 4 times where Brie was proverbially throwing popcorn in the air and screaming and jumping out of her seat.
It was the underwater with the
head coming through the
that was the one that really got me.
Yeah, it gets everyone.
Hollywood!
Get down to lady business in the show business.
What was it? Hollyweed?
Hollyweed.
That was a great prank. I loved that.
Bless that person's heart.
Mm-hmm. They got it down so quickly, though.
Oh, yeah. Hollyweed.
Love it.
Who did?
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid.
That's why I like it, though.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Okay, so I want to talk about abortion. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready to talk about abortion?
Yeah, always.
Okay. Because in the U.S., 1 in 3 women have an abortion during their lifetime. That is more than 1 million a year. 1 in 3 women is a lot, but we don't really treat it like it's something that happens to a third of women. Or a decision that a third of women make. It doesn't happen to women.
Don't talk about it.
Right.
Like, at all.
Yes, and the problem is, we're going to talk about the problems that happen when we do talk about it. And by talking about it, I mean when it occurs in movies and TV. So when I'm going to read some statistics, and I just want for you to keep in mind the real life statistics before I talk about what happens in movie and TV.
So that's 1 in 3 women.
So it's 1 in 3 women, and the actual risk of death from legal abortion in the U.S. is less than 1 per 100,000 procedures, and that's 0.001%. It's very, very, very rare. But not so much in movies and TV is it rare. I was reading about a study that was done. It was abortion plot lines in American TV and film through 2013. It hasn't been updated since then, but I'm sure the numbers are pretty similar. 310 plot lines were analyzed, and 55.8% resulted in abortion, 25.8% resulted in parenting, 4.2 adoption, 6.7 pregnancy loss, and I thought that would have been higher.
I feel like that's all I see.
Mm-hmm. It's a way to get out of that plot line without tarnishing your character, and I think it's lazy and sloppy. But
poor writing. That's poor writing.
Yeah, I agree. So if you have a character that considers an abortion, whether or not she actually gets one, 13.5% of those stories end with the woman dying. And when you're looking at whether the abortion happens or not, is 15% of the time they die. And that can be by complications with the procedure, which is 59%. 22% of them are murdered. And 11% commit suicide.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I laugh when I think things are ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, first of all, that the number of 0.001% of abortions that actually result in death in reality, that has been bloated up to 15% is just insane. That is saying something, that is making a comment.
Oh, definitely.
Because it's not reflective of the real world.
No.
It's frustrating to see that. So I wrote up these rules for having an abortion according to Hollywood. I don't know who made up these rules, but this is the deal, apparently. Number 1, it has to be a difficult decision. Number 2, it's best if you rethink the decision and back out at the last minute. Number 3, you must feel guilty and shame afterwards, and you don't talk about it with anyone, your feelings or the fact that you had it at all. And finally, you should ideally face negative consequences as punishment, such as death, murder, and suicide. Oh, because you feel so much guilt and shame.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely.
There is this idea that women should feel shame. Mm-hmm. Or that they should feel a connection, and that it should be a tough decision. That is not everyone's story.
No, and I think that it's valid. If that's your experience. If that's your
story, go ahead. Like, that's yours, and you can have that. But that is not everyone's story.
Yeah, and the problem is that's the only dialogue. When that's the only dialogue, that's a problem. Because
it is a problem.
It tells women, even if you know it's the right decision for you, even if you have no doubts for yourself, that you need to feel a certain way afterwards.
It also tells society that they should feel a certain way towards these women, which is a big reason why we don't openly discuss it among each other, and why we keep it to ourselves, why a lot of people keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
It's when you're okay with that choice and you feel like it wasn't, and you don't feel shame or regret, and then you discuss it with someone, I'm assuming that it's like, that you wouldn't want that person to come back with sadness, kind of the feelings that you didn't have. You don't want that projected onto you.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's telling you how to feel, and if you don't feel that way, it doesn't mean you're wrong.
No.
It's your experience. We don't let women have their own experiences.
Yeah, it's a sensitive subject because some women, they do struggle with it, and that's okay. So you want to be sensitive when you're discussing it, but you also don't want to force any feelings in any way onto anybody. And that's definitely what Hollywood does.
I mean, I scoured for examples of positive depictions of abortion, not necessarily the procedure itself, but as a situation. And there are some. I mean, I would love to talk about some specifically.
Yeah.
But before I get into that, I do want to address the fact that another issue with how abortion is depicted in movies and TV is that it's largely shown to be a white women's issue, despite the fact that it's not specific to white women. It's also not specific to women of any age, any economic status. It's universal for women. I mean, women that have the ability to reproduce. But I've tried really hard. I looked everywhere to find examples of women of color.
Well, when you were doing your research, you asked me, and I couldn't think of one. Like, there was one kind of resting in the back of my head where I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen a movie where at least a person of color was thinking about having an abortion, but I think that I put that there. I don't know if I've actually ever seen that.
I had that same feeling, and I couldn't figure out what it was, but I think I'm not basing this on any kind of statistic or fact, but my impression is that usually when women of color, specifically probably Black and Latina women, are portrayed as having an unwanted pregnancy, they usually they have the baby.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly.
Or adoption.
Yeah.
I think is probably a lot higher for Black and Latina characters. I watched 4 Colored Girls, and that does address abortion with Tessa Thompson is the character. I really like her.
Kara, have you seen 4 Colored Girls?
No, I really like Tessa Thompson as well, though. Oh.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's really great. She's going off to college. She's young. I believe that it's like her first sexual encounter, or she's not very sexually experienced, and it's a really negative experience that she has. She doesn't feel like she can tell her mother because her mother is like crazy in a crazy religious cult, and she doesn't feel like she can tell her sister because her sister is very judgmental and resents her because the mother favors her. But she ends up going to this super sketchy place because she doesn't have the money to go to a good place, and then she gets hurt. I mean, she ends up being okay, but it's a really negative, bad experience for her. She has to go alone because she has no one to support her. And so that was one I could find. Also, recently, Jane the Virgin, did an episode where that was addressed, and not Jane's pregnancy, but her mom, Xiomara, becomes pregnant, and she has addressed the fact that she doesn't want to have any more children before she gets pregnant. And it's actually the reason that she breaks up with her boyfriend at the time. And she's made it very clear that it's not something that she wants. And so when she becomes pregnant, she makes the decision, she does it. And generally, everyone's very supportive. Her mother is very religious, so she eventually comes around. But that was a really positive experience because she doesn't feel guilt afterwards. She's not pressured to do anything else. She knows it's the right thing for her. Everyone is supportive, and I really enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy it, but I really appreciated seeing that in such a positive way.
I don't know if positive, but supportive and not typical, not your stereotypical ending.
It's not punishing in any way.
Yeah.
They all move on with their lives.
And that's what happens, And it's okay. It's okay to go on.
It is okay. And you don't need to feel guilt.
No.
Another episode recently, the thing is that TV's doing a lot better with a lot of things. Not all of them. TV's still really bad about burying the gays. I don't know if you're familiar with that trope, but it's just make sure your gay characters die, basically, as punishment for being gay. Specifically lesbians, and I mentioned that earlier. BoJack Horseman has an episode in the most recent season.
I really love that episode.
Called Brap Brap Pew Pew.
Christina Aquafina.
I loved it because of its very normal depiction, and specifically because the character Diane is married.
Yes.
And
her husband has the same reaction that she does.
Yeah, they together are not ready. They're not ready. They don't want to do it. And it's a decision that they make together, and they're both on the same page. And
which is really important because I feel another stereotype in movies and television with abortion is that the man wants the baby. Mm-hmm. He wants to be a dad, and he resents the woman for it, or he talks the woman out of the decision. Mm-hmm. And BoJack Horseman really got that part right. They got a lot of parts right.
Absolutely. I can't talk about that without bringing up the fact that Diane, the character, while I like the character and while I do like Alison Brie as an actress, the fact that she's playing an Asian character, she's voicing an Asian character, is problematic.
Definitely.
So just need to put that out there. I love the show, and they do try to be as diverse as possible. I know that's something that they've talked about trying to be active about. I don't know how that got through.
I'm assuming, and this is not a justification, I'm assuming that Alison Brie wanted to do it, and she's a bigger name actress, which happens a lot.
It does.
Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
The new one.
Kubo.
Benedict Cumberbatch. I will never get over that. I'm sorry. He is not Khan. He will never be Khan. I was so offended.
Kubo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I really like Laika, and I like what they do, and they do amazing, beautiful animation, but that was really disappointing. Mm-hmm. Just IMDb that. It's, mostly white people.
Big Hero 6. They didn't do that.
Disney's usually pretty good about those things because they come under fire really, really harshly if they don't get it right.
Moana was people from the South Pacific.
Yeah. All Polynesian descent voice actors.
So it can be done, is my point, and that you should do it. Big Hero 6, Daniel Henney, I think his name. He's beautiful. He did the voice of the older brother, and he's not a big name at all. He's an actor, but he did a great job, and so it can be done. It is being done, and it has good results.
Yeah. Did you guys have any what stands out to you when you think about abortion in movies or TV, or any particular movies or TV that sticks out to you?
One that sticks out to me that I love is Obvious Child.
So one thing I really want to tell you about that, I don't know if you knew this, but Planned Parenthood consulted on that movie.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And that's why it's so good.
We love Planned Parenthood.
Partly. I mean, that's partly why it's so good. Yes.
No, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I felt that it's a really productive depiction of abortion and it's appropriate. It's not only the procedure itself, but also the fact that it, like you were saying, the whole thing with the man and his reaction and his thoughts and feelings and desires on it. This guy in this film, he is like supportive, and it doesn't drive them apart. It actually kind of brings them together. What did you think about it as a man or just as a movie person?
I liked it. Mm-hmm. I think I had been taken aback like during the middle of the film. I was like, this is not what I thought this was at all. And then when the ending comes, like, oh, okay, now I see the why this was such an important film on this topic.
What I love about it is that it's a comedy.
I love that too.
And it's funny. I remember laughing out loud. She has this really silly joke about her mom being an Eileen Fisher ninja because she walks up behind her, and that stuck out to me. It has nothing to do with abortion, but I thought it was really funny. And also at the end, not at the end, but right before she goes in for the procedure, her friend is going to take her, and the man who she got pregnant by shows up, and he has flowers, and you can tell that he's totally lost, but he's putting forth an effort.
Yeah.
And then he takes her, and after they're just sitting on the couch together watching a movie. And what I actually really love about it too is that we don't know what happens to their relationship after that, because they're not together, they're not a couple. They just met and had sex, and they weren't, I wouldn't say they were brought together by her getting pregnant, but it provided more dialogues for them to have.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, they're still not together, but they're supportive of each other.
Yeah.
And he's supportive of her to the point where they can sit on the couch and watch a movie together, and it's fine.
Yeah. I love that. And I also particularly like showing a woman that has an unwanted pregnancy, and that even though she knows what she wants to do, she still is having feelings about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's okay to have feelings about it. It's okay.
There are feelings and concerns and questions about a lot of things that are so okay to have.
You don't have to be on one side or the other. You don't have to be on the side of being so conflicted that you end up changing your mind or having no feelings whatsoever.
The entire thing is a gray area. It's very gray.
Yeah.
There's no black or white.
A couple things I noticed, not having to do anything with abortion, but certainly with representation. I kind of appreciated that, she doesn't, she's not blonde, the main actress. Jenny Slate.
Love her.
She doesn't, quote, air quotes, look like a lot of leading ladies that are getting parts now. And I love that, it was she was very upfront about some of her neuroses. One of the sequences I liked is when she's trying to decide whether she wants to confront her ex-boyfriend, and she's standing across the street with a cup of coffee, and she's like, all right, if the woman walking down the sidewalk turns left and stops, by the time I'm in my second sip, I'll go talk to him or whatever. And I was like, I play those games myself, and I really appreciated those elements of the movie as well.
Yeah, I think as a character, she's pretty real. She feels like a real person and makes decisions like a real person, a real woman. I really like that a lot. I was saying earlier about that you don't have to be on one side or the other. That kind of reminds me of, I know you haven't seen Gare, but I haven't seen it either, but Citizen Ruth, I read the whole thing about it, and she somehow gets caught up in the two sides battling for her particular situation. Yes. And she has people from the pro-choice side being actually encouraging her to have an abortion.
Which is not...
It's a weird movie. I mean, it would never get made today, I think, because the whole thing is, like, she's kind of like a vagrant a little bit and has been in trouble with the law and arrested. And then the judge, when she gets arrested and she's pregnant, it's so weird. He's like... okay, well, I'll drop this charge if you have an abortion. God. So it becomes a very, very public thing. And then I haven't seen this, but the description of this I really liked this, even though the movie seems very wacky, is the fact that in the end, the two sides are going at it against each other. And she just walks away because no one's paying attention to her. Because that's how we talk about reproductive rights in this country.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the two sides going against each other, and no one's actually paying attention to the woman that is having this experience and is trying to make a decision. It's infuriating.
Yeah. It's infuriating. Another one that always bothered me, well, one scene was from Juno. She, in the beginning... goes to a clinic to have an abortion, and she is stopped by a protester who's someone that is her age. And as she's entering the clinic, the girl shouts, "Your baby has fingernails," or something really stupid like that.
Which is something that I think they were saying when we were at the clinic.
They said a lot of things when we were at the clinic volunteering.
Yeah, they get really specific and they try to like tug at
your heartstrings.
But that's what stops her.
Yes, that's what stops her. She goes in, and then I was just disappointed.
It is disappointing. It happens a lot where there's that big dramatic moment where they go and they have the appointment and they go to the clinic and they're going to get the abortion and then they decide last minute not to have it.
Yeah.
I really love the movie Blue Valentine, but...
haven't seen it.
Here's a good... There's good and bad. Okay, so good... the abortion scene where at the last minute she stops it, they're already starting the process. The doctor in that scene is a real abortion doctor from Planned Parenthood, and the nurse is a real nurse too. So there's a lot of accuracy in the actual procedure of it, but of course... And there's some weird scandal that the doctor was involved in, like, way after the fact of this movie, and I didn't really look into it, but... I mean, it's not necessarily relevant, but a lot of pro-life websites mention that for some reason.
A lot of pro-life people mention a lot of things.
Yeah. But the thing is, even though it's accurate and progressive in that part of the depiction, it does, again, rely on the trope where she doesn't go through with it. And yes, it's okay to make that decision if that's the decision that's right for you.
At any point, you can make that decision, and that's okay.
Yes, but it's a problem when that is the only story that we hear.
And I feel like that's what we're trying to stress. It's the only story. It's not that these aren't stories or that they're not important stories. They are, but they're not the only story. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we see all stories.
I agree. Garrett, anything specific on Blue Valentine that stood out to you?
It's been a while since I've seen Blue Valentine, but on the Juno front and Knocked Up, you had kind of touched on this earlier, Bree, just like the sort of writerly shorthand or shortcut to get out of talking about this topic. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they have a checklist. It's like, well, we need to check this box. Let's do it in as quickly a way as possible without really going into the topic in any meaningful
yeah, that's another thing. Women who do decide to go through with pregnancy to full term, some women don't consider abortion an option ever at any point, but it's used to not further the plot, but it's used as padding to me. For a movie, that conflict has to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily there. And there are other conflicts for those women who don't even think about abortion.
I did appreciate that conflict in Jane the Virgin when Jane is pregnant, only because of the complication of her situation and the fact that she hasn't had sex. Yeah. She gets artificially inseminated. It's a completely ludicrous situation.
How does that... I haven't watched
it's It's kind of hilarious. It's based on a telenovela. It's ridiculous. So, like, she goes to get a pap smear, I think, and the doctor is also doing an artificial insemination, but the doctor is an alcoholic and gets confused and is... Well, I don't know if she's not drunk at the time, but she is an alcoholic, and I think she was maybe hungover and she was stressed out with something going on that day. And she gets confused about the rooms, and it's a little over the top because the person that's getting the artificial insemination is her sister-in-law. So she should know who's getting what, but she fucks them up. Yeah, it's outrageous.
It's my worst fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's my worst fear.
That probably almost positively will never happen to you.
Yeah, but it's my worst fear.
I understand. Yeah. But I did appreciate, because Jane's situation was so, like, crazy, that she considered it. It was not something that was ever... She never made any decisions that led to that.
Yeah.
That's her being in that situation. So it was something that she considered. And I think in that situation it made sense. Another movie that was actually pretty revolutionary at the time in talking about abortion was Dirty Dancing.
I love Dirty Dancing.
Yeah,
I love Patrick Swayze, and I'm not quite sure why he hasn't contacted me yet from Beyond the Grave.
I don't know.
I also feel like this is not the first time I brought it up on the podcast, which means that I bring it up all the time in real life.
I have no reason for why.
He's late. He's late in the game, and I'm starting to get really upset. So, P. Swayze, if you're listening, get on it.
Anyway, in the movie, it's actually an illegal abortion that takes place. I would love for you to explain this movie in very...
So Baby and her family go to a resort for, like, a summer vacation, and it's a nice, like, rich white people resort. She meets the help of the resort. I believe Patrick Swayze's character teaches dance lessons, and, you know, there are, like, waiters and waitresses, and so she meets these people, and she thinks they're kind of cool, and she befriends them, and she goes to a party that's, like, where all of the help sleeps.
And they dirty dance.
And she's like, what is this?
Which is, like, so mild,
and then
really.
Like, and so she meets this woman, and this woman and Patrick Swayze are dancing, and they're, like, a dance team. They're not together. They're not a couple, but they compete. And so, you know, there's this big dance competition coming up, but then she finds out she's pregnant, and then she gets an abortion. She has complications after, and then Baby's dad has to come because he's a doctor, and he thinks that it's Patrick Swayze who did all that, who's the reason why all of this is happening. And then he's like, Baby, you can't be friends with Patrick Swayze anymore. And so then Baby is like, and
she has to dance in secret.
She has to dance in secret, and then at the end, she's like, I can't dance for this talent show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Patrick Swayze
and then Patrick Swayze comes in and he's like, no one puts Baby in a corner.
Yep.
And then they dance and he lifts her up, and that's the end, and it's a love story.
Yes. One thing I actually kind of like about this depiction of abortion is the character, I think her name is Penny, that gets the abortion.
Yes, her name is Penny.
Yeah. So even though you could say that she's punished for the abortion, but I think actually the way to look at it is that it's a pretty pro-choice movie because it was an illegal abortion, so it's basically saying, like, look, this is what happens when abortion isn't legal.
Yeah. Women get hurt.
Yeah. It's not going to stop we're not going to stop having abortion.
No. Everyone... Well, no one listening to our podcast thinks that that's going to happen, but people in the world right now need to know that that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I mean, another example, Revolutionary Road.
That movie.
Just because abortion was not legal at the time, in many times in history, doesn't mean that it didn't stop women from trying. And you know what? That's why it was so dangerous for a long time in that movie, she does like a at-home abortion with this like weird kit thing. And then she just bleeds out and dies.
Yeah.
It's really messed up. We don't need more of those kinds of depictions. I mean, while it does, again, like with Dirty Dancing, it says, okay, this is what happens when women don't have agency over their bodies to make the decisions that they want to make. They do it anyway, and then they get hurt because they can't do it the right way, in a safe way.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. What a nice light note to end that topic on.
Let's go to something fun. Let's talk about Full House.
Okay.
Just kidding. Well, we will.
Yeah, I think next we're gonna touch on the topic. We're not gonna just touch. We're gonna get into it.
We're gonna talk about single moms.
Let's do it.
Single moms in television, particularly. Movies was it's a little too broad for this subject or what I want to talk about. So there are 12 million single parent families in America.
Wow.
Yeah, and 80% of those are single mothers, which is a big chunk.
Yeah, not surprising though.
No, not surprising. 1 in 4 children under the age of 18 are being raised without a father. That's a big amount.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a single parent home. Gare's wife comes from a single parent home. I think we're normal people.
Yeah, I feel like you're pretty normal.
I think we're productive members of society.
Totally.
Totally. You know who doesn't think that we should be?
Hollywood.
Hollyweed. So let's talk about single mothers and very special episodes, because these are my favorite.
I mean, for something that's so common,
for it to be a very special episode. Mm-hmm. And tonight's very special episode, so-and-so's parents are getting a divorce, which means that she's going to be on drugs. And she'll get an abortion.
And she's going to steal.
For sure.
And die.
And it's
young.
It's not her dad's fault. It's her mom's fault, because now her mom has to be a working parent. Mm-hmm. And she can't spend enough time with her daughter. Mm-hmm. She probably can't feed her either. Mm-hmm. That was a Seventh Heaven episode, not that whole thing. There was a single parent who was taking care of one of the friends of the children, and in no way did this tie together, but this kid wasn't eating at home. Mm-hmm. The reason that they gave was that his mom had gotten a divorce. Like, I'm serious, that was their explanation, was that his mom had gotten a divorce, so now she had to work. It's definitely a trend that the single parent child is destructive and poorly taken care of. A good example of this is Full House. Mm-hmm. Stephanie had a friend named Gia, and Gia's mom had gotten a divorce, and Gia was a bad kid. Mm-hmm. The first episode that she's in, she meets Stephanie. When we're introduced to Gia, she meets Stephanie, and she's smoking in the bathroom at school.
Ugh, bad kid.
Now, Stephanie is also the product of a single parent home. Mm-hmm. But that's the big difference. That her dad is taking care of her, which is definitely a theme. That if the father is the primary parent that is taking care of the children, then those children are more productive and they're more well looked after and they make better choices for themselves. On Blossom had a friend named Six, who I always really related to because she was silly. Six made bad choices. Mm-hmm. And it was because Six was being taken care of by her single mother. And Blossom made good choices because she was being taken care of by a man, mm-hmm. her single father. The relationship between a father and a daughter is stressed. Mm-hmm. You have to have girls growing up have to have a male influence that is paternal influence, and if they don't have that, then they make bad choices. Going back to Gia from Full House, Gia was always making terrible choices. Mm-hmm. She was smoking. There was the makeout episode where she had a party when her mom was working because her mom had to work. some boy like wanted to make out with Stephanie, and Stephanie was like, no, and Gia was just like, I'm gonna be over on this chair making out with this guy, because Gia's raised by a mom and she makes bad choices, but Stephanie's raised by a dad and she makes good choices.
But you know what? Sometimes making out with someone is a good choice.
It is a good choice.
Not always.
No,
but it can be.
But also it's okay if it's not a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always, I mean...
You can make bad decisions and recover from them. And you can make out with people, and that's fine.
So another episode that I remember with Gia was her and Stephanie were at the mall, and these guys are like, hey, why don't you come and hang out with us and get in our car, and we'll take you somewhere, just drive around.
Never get in the car with a stranger. I don't care how cute that stranger is.
Yeah, don't do that. I did that as a teenager a couple times, but don't do that. Like, don't do that. But all children make bad decisions. Like, all kids do.
Exactly.
All kids make bad choices. I didn't make that choice because I was raised by a single mother and I didn't have a father to show me what love was and tell me the choices that I should be making for myself. I made that choice because I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And kids make stupid choices.
Yep. That's part of growing up.
It is.
You have to make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah.
You just pray that you don't make a mistake that, like, results in your murder.
Exactly. But definitely in the episode of Full House, Gia gets into the car with the boys and Stephanie's like, no, I will not do it. And then she gets into a car accident and gets hurt. But she's okay. She gets hurt, but it's not too bad. She learns her lesson. Ugh. But in the last episode that we see Gia, her mother goes to Danny Tanner and tells him that Gia's a better person now because of Stephanie. But that's definitely a very common theme. The same like with Blossom and Six. Six makes really bad choices, where Blossom makes all of these really good choices and has a very enriching life. And that continues. Do you guys have any single parent? Can you remember any? Because they're not good, like positive single parents.
I feel like it's really rare for the single parent to not be, like, you're talking about peripheral characters. I think it's becoming more of a thing. In Jane the Virgin, Xiomara was a single mom with Jane's mom. And, of course, Gilmore Girls is another example.
I'll talk about that. But, yeah, and what I find interesting is that it's not really a thing anymore, but it definitely was in the 70s with kind of the feminist movement. There were a lot of television shows that were really good that featured single parent women that were doing an okay job. Like, life wasn't perfect for them. One Day at a Time is an example, which just got a remake, and this remake is amazing.
I'm really excited for it.
It's a sitcom.
Yeah.
So it's jokey and hokey, but they get so many things right on that show.
I really love the daughter. That's super feminist and like a little social justice warrior. And
I think that show does a really good job of having a feminist voice with a different cultural background. The family's Cuban. And so I know what it's like to have that conflict of being in a Hispanic family and also being feminist. It's a different experience than being a feminist and being in a white household. And there are so many cultural things that you really hold on to and love, but they do have not necessarily the best background.
Right.
And they've evolved over time, and they mean something totally different now, which they say in One Day at a Time.
Yeah.
Like, she says it to both. There's a grandmother who's played by Rita Moreno. Oh, I love her.
She's wonderful.
She's so good. The grandmother and the granddaughter are arguing about the quinces, and the grandmother wants her to have one, and the daughter doesn't want her to have one. The daughter doesn't want to have one, and the mom is just like, what era are the both of you from? Because it doesn't mean what either of you think it means anymore. And so I think that does a really good job of showing that, like, these traditions that Hispanic cultures and even other cultures have evolved over time. And I just really love that show. I'm smitten with that show, and they did a really good job with the remake. And
that whole thing reminds me a lot of what we were talking about with the Christmas episode and traditions. And it's okay to still practice traditions that may have roots in patriarchy or things that aren't that great. It's okay to still do that if it means something to you as a family tradition or a cultural tradition. It's okay to do that. It's not okay to do it and just ignore the history, and you can still do it and just do it your way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that show gets really right. Another thing that they get really right is that the mom is divorced, and the mother was also, she's an Iraq vet, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's another thing that they talk about in the end that I thought was really important, was the mom is like, you know, I can load a gun in 13 seconds. I'm a badass. Like, I'm a badass mom. And the daughter's like, I don't think of you that way. I never think of you that way. But I should be, because you have all of these other layers to who you are. It's not just you as a single mom taking care of me and I'm the center of it. And I thought it was really important and really cool that they talked about that. They do a really good job. And the original One Day at a Time was silly, and it didn't have as many layers, of course. I still loved it. It had Mackenzie Phillips and like all of these other people in it, and it's a good show. But at that time, those shows were okay to have. There were so many. There was so many shows. There was Phyllis, and there were a lot of characters that were kind of side characters or friends in other major shows like Maude. Where there's like a single mother in Maude, and she's a little bit like silly, but she's not a bad mom.
Yeah. And
I think that was really respected in the 70s, and it's not respected anymore.
Well, there was a bit of a regression, I think, after the first wave of feminism, where it was this drive to get women back in the house.
Yeah, definitely.
And like
that's where your very special episodes come from.
Yeah.
Keeping the family dynamic
together.
and unit together, and keeping mom in the house. And if mom was working, we didn't see her working.
Yeah, there's like this magical, like somehow she's magically working and making an income, but she's always there when her kids get home from school.
Yeah, she's always there, and she's always there to have coffee with her friends. And
what is this magical job? Because I'm available for hire.
Right? Hire me.
Okay, so what about Fuller House, which is the opposite situation?
That actually kind of takes me to my next subject, which is if you are a single mom now in television, with the exception of One Day at a Time, which is another reason why it's such a good show, watch it. You have to be a nice white lady with a nice white lady job that is flexible, but also allows you to support your family fully. Fuller House falls into that dynamic. DJ Tanner is a veterinarian, she's a nice white lady, and her husband's dead.
Yeah.
So it is by no fault of her own that her husband is gone, and now she's making this huge sacrifice to be a single mom and take care of her 3 boys. And of course she can't do it on her own, which is why she needs her sister and Kimmy Gibbler to come and help her. So she moves back into her childhood home and has her little veterinarian stand, her veterinarian practice set up immediately in San Francisco, and it's thriving. And that's the only other way we see single women. Gilmore Girls is the same way, where if you look at Lorelai, her background, she had to work a little harder for it, but she's one of those women who can go to Luke's and get coffee at any time of day.
Part of the problem is that we didn't ever see Lorelai's struggle, because when we jump into their story, Rory's in high school, she's 16, she does her homework on her own, she doesn't have to really be parented as much as a younger child.
They talk about it a lot. They talk about that part of Lorelai's life where it was difficult. But even when we have an opportunity to see Lorelai struggle for her daughter, it's taken away from us when Rory wants to go to Chilton, at the time, Lorelai doesn't own her bed and breakfast yet. Mm-hmm. She's just working for one, and so she can't afford to send Rory to this school. But she can go to her parents, who are very well off, and ask them for the money. And of course, they say yes.
Right, because she always has that fallback, even though for her it's usually her pride that gets in the way. You know, she struggled, but that was a choice for her. She could have had the support of her parents, but she chose to be on her own and accept that struggle in order to do things the way that she wanted to do.
Yes.
And that is a privilege to, I mean, yeah, it's tough. I'm not saying that single parenthood is easy, but having that choice and knowing, even if she was too proud to go back to her parents, in the back of her head, she had to have always known that was an option. She would never be homeless. And that's a privilege.
It is a privilege. And it's one that we don't think about as viewers watching it. And that's always been a theme. Like, I love Murphy Brown, but Murphy Brown, she was a very successful news reporter, and it was easy for her to make the choice to be a single mother. Although at the time that was a big step, because she chose to be a mom. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't unplanned. She made the step and said, okay, I'm going to be a mom, and I can do that. But once again, there's a lot of privilege there.
Yeah.
She could make that choice. I love that show, but that was always really frustrating to me. And there are definitely things that are difficult for any single parent situation.
Right.
That, like, I don't even know because I'm not a single parent.
What we see on TV, we see the same thing over and over again, and that doesn't represent every family.
No, it doesn't. And what we do see with people who do struggle, or with families that aren't as privileged, is children who don't have enriching lives. Mm-hmm. And that's not true at all. Not wanting isn't necessarily like the only way to enrich your child's life and make sure that they are good people and good members of society.
Exactly.
And a lot of single parents produce really good members of society.
Yeah.
Was Barack Obama's mom a single mom?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Look at that.
Look at that.
Go Obama.
Another example of how women are punished for not being a nice white lady is Switched at Birth. But it's about two girls that are switched at birth, and they don't find out until they're in high school. And
one of them is blind, right?
One of them's deaf.
Oh, deaf. Okay, sorry.
But the mother that took her home from the hospital, not her biological mother, but the mother that ended up with her, is Hispanic. And her story is, the story between the mother and the daughter there is that they have a really close relationship, and she's a single mother because the dad left when this girl was like 3 years old because he knew it wasn't his, so he assumed that this woman had cheated on him, and he just left.
Yeah.
Because that's always the story of a Hispanic woman, is that Hispanic women have less morality, or that they're overly sexual. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a theme in television in general. So they pick up on that. But also in this story, the mom, the single mother, then becomes an alcoholic. And because of her negligence while she's been drinking, the daughter gets some type of infection, and she has a fever, and that's what causes her to become deaf.
Goodness. I didn't get that far.
Oh, yeah.
But then you find out that the daughter is actually the daughter of the, like, privileged white people, right?
Exactly. And the mom is treated very poorly because of her negligence, which, honestly, like, that doesn't necessarily bother me because I think that storyline can be dealt with properly. But they continue to punish her throughout the entire series. And when we first meet them, they're just, like, living in a regular house in, like, East LA, which is, you know, it's East LA. And so the nice white family brings them into their home and allows this woman to live in their, like, upstairs apartment above their garage.
Uh-huh.
And she's expected to be grateful
Yeah.
It's really fucked up.
That's a really weird situation. I question whether that is how it would be dealt with in the real world.
I mean, it's ABC Family, so nothing is dealt with properly as it would be. But also ABC Family, while they're really good at casting people of color, they're really bad at representing them properly. So that woman just has like everything going against her. She's not white. She's single because a man left her and it was all her fault.
Well, yeah, it always is, isn't it?
Yeah. And she's a cosmetologist, which cosmetologists, their salaries range greatly, but she was just like working in some salon and didn't have like an easy job to do or a super desirable job. So she had everything going against her. Another one that I want to talk about was Friends. You guys have seen Friends?
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
you've seen Friends.
I've seen some episodes.
Have you seen when Rachel gets pregnant?
No,
Yeah.
Really?
What?
I have not seen that episode.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Rachel gets pregnant.
What?
And it's Ross's baby.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about that situation is that she makes the choice not to be with anyone while she's pregnant. And she makes the choice to be a single parent. But once again, she's allowed to make that choice. And while I really love Friends because there's so many cool things about it, but like all of these people, once again, are just draped in privilege.
Yeah.
And what bothers me is every time I was doing research, the reason why I wanted to bring up Friends is not necessarily to make that point, but I found a lot of lists that were like, the 5 best single mothers on television. And Rachel is always like in the top 5 of like these really great single mothers. But I don't understand why, because like even though she makes these like decisions that I think are definitely empowering, there's so much privilege and we're not supposed to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not supposed to see that. It's easy for her to be a single mom.
It's the whole Friends world is that. I mean, look at their apartments.
Oh yeah.
Like,
but also look at Rachel's story in general. She kind of just has everything fall into her lap.
She's coming from a place of privilege and having been at least upper middle class. Would you say?
Her family was wealthy.
Okay, so she's wealthy and white and always has daddy to rely on for money if she needs it, and she does.
Yeah. I think there's one episode where she can't use her credit card because she's trying to save money. And that's like it. It's the only time they talk about it. But it's the same. A lot of single mothers in television are just, they have so much privilege, and the ones who don't have privilege are really villainized, and it's sad. It's a bad place for us to put single moms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really want to talk about Girl Meets World.
Okay.
Because I hate watched Girl Meets World. Rowan Blanchard is a feminist. Like, she's very outspoken. She's definitely a feminist. I love her, and she's the main character in Girl Meets World. So she is the product of Corey and Topanga.
Mm-hmm.
So you know the relationship between Corey and Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean comes from like a single parent family, and
yes,
he has the same issue where he's not being taken care of. His is actually his dad, though. He has a father, so there is an exception to that. But he's not being taken care of, and he kind of relies on Corey's family to take care of him.
Right.
And to be his parents. So Girl Meets World is not different from that at all.
Right.
The show's basically the same dynamic. Everything about it is the same. You have Corey and Topanga, who Corey is now a teacher, just like Feeney.
Of course.
Topanga's a lawyer.
I like that.
She's a lawyer, but I like it, but it's also, it's frustrating to me because the timeline with how old their daughter is and Topanga being a lawyer means that she had a daughter before she even went to law school. And
yeah,
once again, it's like Corey and Topanga are privileged and that they can do that. Like, Topanga could have a daughter and go to law school and have that be easy and finish within a proper time period. Like, she didn't take any extra time the way that the timeline works out.
Is that, I mean, is that even privilege, or is that just, like, fantasy?
Oh, both. I mean, it's privilege.
Because if they were living off of Corey's teaching salary, how could she go to law school and have a baby, or have the baby be taken care of by someone else when she's not home?
And graduate on time.
Yeah, that's just, how is that?
There are things that show gets right. I really like the relationship between Riley, which is the daughter of Corey and Topanga, and Maya. They're sweet to each other, and even though they have conflicts, like, their relationship, they understand that it's important to them. And I think that a lot of times we don't allow girls to have those relationships.
Oh, yeah.
But Maya, poor Maya, is once again the product of a single parent who works too much and cannot take care of her. And she is also one where sometimes she doesn't eat. And okay. I don't know why that's always something that is brought up. The theme of Maya being from a single parent home that does not take care of her is consistent throughout the entire series. I am confident in saying that at least every other episode they mention how she's not being taken care of by her mother.
Ugh.
She is a little sassy and kind of a smart mouth. And they take her and they kind of make her into, like, a bad kid without having her do bad things.
Uh-huh.
And Sean comes, and Sean can relate to that because he was the same way. But he tells Maya that part of her problem is the way she dresses.
Okay.
And so Sean then takes her shopping to buy her clothes because her mother can't afford to buy her clothes. And then after she gets the clothes, she's fixed and happy because she had a male giving her attention.
Okay, that's weird.
And it's because her mom can't give her guidance as a single parent because she's working at a diner. It's really bizarre. And their solution in this show, their overall solution, which I didn't know about until today, was to have Sean marry Maya's mom.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
So now Maya has a dad. And she can be a whole person.
No.
That's it. So basically, in Hollywood, the rules of being a single mother are you have to be white, and you have to have a really good job that affords a lot of really wonderful things for your family, and your husband should be dead.
Yeah, it's preferred.
It's preferred that he's dead. If you are a person of color, or if you haven't, I don't know, what would you, just a regular job? Like, you're just a regular person in a middle-class family, or even...
I don't know. Oh, you know what's another single mom? One Tree Hill. Did you watch that?
I didn't.
So she was a single mom, and she was actually portrayed... So, like, Lucas, her son, was portrayed as, like, the better, more moral son.
Oh,
and
good.
The rich son is the jerk.
Oh.
I think part of the reason, and this totally plays into what you were saying, is that part of the reason that Lucas turns out okay is because he has a father figure.
Oh.
Which is his biological father's brother.
Oh. Well, then, yeah, he's fine.
Right.
Then, yeah, he's totally fine.
Yeah, so that the brother has always been around. He was always in love with the mother, and that just never happened. And so he was always around and, like, being the father figure for Lucas.
Of course.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
One of my favorite single mom shows when I was growing up was Kate and Allie. I loved that show.
It's really cute.
It's so good.
Garrett, do you know the premise of Kate and Allie?
So, Kate and Allie are just, like, friends who live in New York, and they're divorced, and they live together, and they take care of their kids. And, like, that's it.
They
it's
decide,
so simple, but
they decide to be a family together.
They're like, we want a village to help our children, And that's great. And so they come together and they live together, and it's wonderful, and they have a great relationship, and it's not necessarily wonderful all the time. It's complicated, and there are layers to all of them, to all the characters, and I really love that. I really love it.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Another one that I want to mention is Reba. I just want to give Reba an honorable mention, because even though Reba's husband is a dentist and clearly they have money, Reba had to put up with a lot of shit from her family.
Don't they live next door?
They live next door.
Each other.
Poor Reeves.
Yeah, I love that. And she was so gracious about the new wife. I mean, she gave her a lot of crap.
But that's where I allow Reba to be an exception, is because you can see her struggle with co-parenting, but she still does it, and she does it well.
Oh yeah, and though they have arguments on how to parent, they always in the end they work together, and they never pit each other against each other.
No. And they become, I feel like by the end they're friends.
Yeah, because she's a good mom, and she knows that it's better for her kids to have 3 parents than 1.
Yeah. Reeves.
Love Reba. Doesn't she have a new show coming out?
Does she?
I think she does, and I think I'm excited.
Is she going to be a single mom again?
Oh my god, I hope so.
I hope so too.
It's rumor right now.
Oh, it's a rumor.
But Reba is working on a show for ABC called Southern Gothic Soap Opera.
Oh, wait. Yeah. I heard about that.
No. Sorry, it's not called that, but that's
that's what it is.
Southern, quote unquote, Southern Gothic soap opera, which sounds great.
But I bet she's a single mom.
It's right up my alley.
Reba's not single, but she's got a lot of respect for single moms.
God, I love
Reba.
Reba. I'm a survivor.
That's a theme song, Gare. That's a theme song.
Excellent.
This is the perfect way to end this episode.
Yeah. That is the perfect way to end this episode. So that
Wait, just wait for the plane.
Oh, yeah.
This plane is being a real dick.
He probably just hovered a little bit.
He's like, I heard they're recording a podcast.
He would have to hover over all of LA.
That's staying in.
All right, so that officially ends our episode today. Next week, we will talk about female friendships in Hollywood and the final girl trope. Follow us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or if you have any questions, email us at SheSplainPodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. Say bye, Gare.
Bye, Gare.